Following David Lynch's death this year, a friend of mine and I have been watching his films. First, Mulholland Drive, the only film of Lynch's that I had actually seen at the time of his death. I had seen Mulholland Drive before when I was about 15, 16, and it kind of went over my head. I had never really seen anything like it, but watching it again, it's obvious that, yes, this is a masterpiece. By my second viewing, I had become more attuned to surrealism and absurdist fiction, and the interweaving of thriller and comedy and horror in Mulholland Drive is genius. And that interweaving of comedy and dread is something that was an evident trademark in Lynch's films. After Mulholland Drive, we watched Eraserhead, and Eraserhead has such a stark atmosphere within its industrial setting that there's something almost Chaplin-esque in the presentation of Henry as he walks atop the mounds of gravel, and the stark atmosphere highlights the very quiet, awkward comedy elements of the film. But I think this interweaving of comedy and dread is even more stark in Lynch's final film, 2006's Inland Empire. Going into the film, I really knew nothing about what the film was about, if Lynch's films could be said to be about anything. But little did I know that Inland Empire was going to be so creepy, in a good way. I knew that Laura Dern was in it and that she was supposed to be fantastic, which she is, and I knew that there were rabbits.
Oh?
I love this show.
But what is Inland Empire about? Laura Dern plays Nikki Grace, an actress who is visited by a new neighbour who has come to introduce herself. While having tea, Nikki's neighbour asks Nikki if there will be a murder in her new film, before prophesizing that Nikki will win the role in an upcoming film which, unbeknownst to Nikki and her co-star and director, is a remake of an unfinished film that is believed to be cursed, as the previous leads both died. While at the first table read, Nikki and her co-workers are interrupted by an unknown presence. Nikki's husband, in another scene, threatens the leading man to not sleep with her as there will be consequences. However, when the two begin an affair, they are seen by Nikki's husband. After this scene, Nikki is walking to her car in an alleyway when she notices a door named Exxon N. When she goes down this rabbit hole, she finds herself at the first table read when we find out that she was the disturbance. And I was genuinely chilled at this moment. There was something so ghostly about it. Is Nikki a ghost? Is she haunted by her decision to have an affair? Is she trying in vain to warn herself not to pursue Devon? Is she warning her past self, or is she haunted by her past?
Brilliant. I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
But I think a much larger question is looming here. Why am I trying to put a clear narrative on a film whose purpose is to be entirely narrative redundant? Why am I trying to figure out what this film is about? I think when we watch film, the story is often one of the major metrics by which we measure whether we thought it was a good film, but Lynch's work is clearly a defiance of that assumption.
There's a lot of films out in the world, and there's a lot of films that are, kind of easy to understand, and that's really good. And as soon as you do something that's a hair more abstract, then you get into a thing, and some people, they really want to understand everything, and other people, they appreciate an abstraction and they like a room to dream. And I love films that allow me room to dream. And I really believe in this thing of intuition, that people feel, think their way, and they know. but it's not a knowing that really can be said in words all the time. And cinema is such a beautiful language, and it can say things without some with words, but some with other things that are abstract.
I feel that there is a pretty coherent plot within Inland Empire, but the presentation of that plot leaves so many questions that could not be concretely answered. So, why am I writing this? What is the point of trying to put an answer on...
Un lapin. Un lapin. Un lapin.
Absurdity is the inherent meaninglessness of the universe, and has been...
Lapin. Un lapin. Un lapin. Un lapin.
And Samuel Beckett began to produce works that were totally void of clear narrative, a beginning, middle, end, development of characters, a clear series of actions. And my initial reaction to Beckett's work was not dissimilar to my 16-year-old reaction to Mulholland Drive.
I'm confused.
I remember going to see a stage reading of some of Beckett's poetry in Dublin and just not getting it. What am I supposed to get out of this?
I'm middle of the throng, motionless, staring into space, mouth half open as usual, till it was back in the hand, the bag back in the hand, then pay and go, not as much as goodbye, how she survived, and...
Or this?
Some fool was cutting grass at a little rush, and then another. The problem was how to convince her that no revival of intimacy was involved. I couldn't. I might have known, so I took her in my arms and said I could not go on living without her. I don't believe I could have.
The only solution was to go away together. He swore we should as soon as he had put his affairs in order. In the meantime, he were to carry on as before. By that he meant as best we could.
So he was mine again, all mine. I was happy again. I went about singing the world.
At home, all heart to heart, new leaf and bygones, bygones.
Or this? And I think what I was craving was the comfort of a plot, the comfort of a meaning, and absurdist works like Beckett's or arguably Lynch's, I would say, is quite absurd. They're totally void of that meaning. But as I've gotten older, there is something else about these works that brings something to me. See, I think when I was 16, and I feel like this is something that most of us feel when we're that age, we're on the road to adulthood, and the turbulent middle ground between childhood and adulthood that is adolescence is often shaped by this question of meaning. What is my life going to mean when I'm an adult? What am I going to make of myself? What am I going to achieve? What is my life going to be about? When I was 16 years old, I was still under the impression that life would be a through line, a beginning, a middle, and an end. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that life is more like a constant cycle. I'm 30 years old now, and I'm still asking myself, what is my life going to mean? What am I going to make of myself? What am I going to achieve? What is my life going to be about? And I still don't have an answer to those questions. I'm still trying to find a meaning when all I have are feelings.
I really believe in this thing of intuition, that people feel, think their way, and they know, but it's not a knowing that really can be said in words all the time.
And that meaninglessness can be a terrifying prospect. Without meaning, what are we to do with our agency? Make YouTube videos, of course. Hannah Arendt once wrote, "With the creation of man, the principle of beginning came into the world itself, which, of course, is only another way of saying that the principle of freedom was created when man was created, but not before. It is in the nature of beginning that something new is started which cannot be expected from whatever may have happened before. So we have the beginning of our narrative. We are the beginning of our narrative. And then what? Where's our script? I mean, we all know how it's going to end, so we need to know. We need to know what to do in the middle so that by the time the end comes, it will have meant something. We need it to mean something. We need it to mean.
Un lapin. Un lapin. Un lapin.
Why we don't speak ill of the dead, why it would be such a nightmare if we were stabbed in the middle of the street and all that could be said about it was whether or not you can get a bus to Pomona. We need an erotics of art. That's what Susan Sontag said in her essay Against Interpretation. Instead of trying to understand what art means, we should engage with it on a non-intellectual basis. How does it make you feel? Inland Empire makes me feel uncomfortable, but in a good way. What I love about it is also what I love about Beckett's work, something which I used to hate. I love that Inland Empire and Lynch's other films makes me feel better about not knowing. It makes me feel a little better about being scared about the meaninglessness of life. And it makes me feel better that perhaps I'm not the only one who has felt that sense of meaninglessness. I'm not the only one who has been chased by the phantom, confronted face to face, and find myself staring back at me. Inland Empire. What is it about?